All right, so again, we welcome everyone on here to the Renegade Blitz live. We're currently doing this for the first time on Streamlabs, and we thank you for joining us on here. We decided to do this coming up in a few weeks with the Thursday night games and all the other things going around in Steelerland because we believe that this could be a more accessible way for us and maybe to get our thoughts out there much quicker in the future and maybe use this as another avenue for the podcast. I'm Ty Polk with Chris Ward and Brandon Walker. Again, thank you so much for joining us on the first ever live edition on the Twitter and the YouTube page, the second for the YouTube. But regardless, we're glad to have on Gilbert Manzano. He covers the Chargers for the Orange County Register and the LA Daily News. Gilbert, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hey, thank you guys for having me on this first ever live episode. So hopefully I don't make any mistakes here on this podcast and ruin it and lose followers because of me. So hopefully it's a good show.
No, we're more worried about ourselves right now, but we're gonna be all good here. But Gilbert, the Steelers are coming off a tie to, of all teams, the Detroit Lions, and right now the Chargers have dropped three of their last four games, even with that incredible victory over Kansas City earlier in the season. So with the stretch run coming up and a bunch of AFC teams in the mix for the playoffs, this Sunday night game is really pivotal, isn't it?
Yeah, no, definitely for both teams, and we're not really sure who's going to play in this game. It could be Justin Herbert against Mason Rudolph, or Justin Herbert against Big Ben, or no Joey Bosa going after Najee Harris. So it's very intriguing to see how this kind of pans out on the field. But for both sides, they need a win here. For the Chargers, they lost three of the last four, like you mentioned, Tyler. They're kind of now back in the race for the AFC West because the Chiefs have woken up. I think they're the 7th seed right now in the playoffs. So 5-4, it's okay, but it's not the best. And now for the Steelers, I don't understand how they somehow tied with the winless Detroit Lions last week. But I guess Mason Rudolph was the starting quarterback there, so you kind of could see that. But you kind of assumed they were going to take care of business at home against the Lions there, but they did not. So it's kind of whoever wins this game, I think on Sunday has a lot of momentum to get back on track and possibly make a run at the playoffs as well.
Yeah, where's Duck Hodges when you need him?
Yeah, 2019.
Yeah. But both teams are dealing with COVID-19 situations right now. Ben Roethlisberger and Minka Fitzpatrick for the Steelers. And right now for the Chargers is Joey Bosa. And it's a double whammy for him because he is unvaccinated. But from what I last seen, he looks like he's still on track, even as a close contact, to play this game. Just explain that situation.
Yeah, so he never tested positive for COVID. He was a negative test, so he's all cleared on that part. Now the tricky part is because he's not vaccinated, he has to wait a little longer for the quarantine, and the quarantine is 5 days. And I guess if my math is correct, from starting Tuesday, that becomes Saturday. So he makes it just in time before the game against the Steelers on primetime football. I know Brandon Staley wasn't 100% sure when he could come back, but it sounds like it's Saturday is the day they're kind of aiming for. He still has to go through another testing period, make sure he has no symptoms and get cleared out. But he is on track to play potentially. But as you guys know, these things always kind of change. You never know. But, they're going to need him out there because they're pretty banged up and shorthanded on the defensive line. We don't know if Jared Taylor's going to be able to play. We don't know if Christian Covington's going to play. Those guys are both on the COVID list. They're down on linebacker as well. Drew Tranquil, who's on the COVID list. And we just found out that Linval Joseph, one of their best players on the inside, has a shoulder injury. So they could be very short-handed. And keep in mind, they're dead last in stopping the run. So it could be a big day for the rookie running back for the Steelers.
Yeah, and Gilbert, Justin Herbert has been really impressive this year with a 19-7 touchdown interception ratio. And he's been highly graded when it comes to places like Pro Football Focus. It appears that the Chargers have a true franchise quarterback for the next decade plus. Next decade plus. What's your assessment on Herbert, and why were so many people wrong about him when he was coming out of Oregon?
Yeah, I guess I'll answer that. I'll answer the back part of the question. Yeah, it's kind of the big mystery. I feel like someone's going to write a book about it or have a big documentary of why, many teams failed on Justin Herbert and why the Chargers were able to land him at number 6 at the 2020 draft. And it's funny because you talk to some of these draft experts, maybe they don't want to take the L on Herbert, but they keep saying that he just got really better. He improved because in Oregon he was not the same guy, and some of us say that he had better weapons with the Chargers because in Oregon they weren't like Alabama or these other teams, so that could be the mystery behind it. But I think when he got to the training camp for the Chargers, you could see all the tools. This guy's a big quarterback, strong arm. I think it was Chris Harris Jr. He kept saying every day in practice, like, this guy's legit because he sees the throws and practices. So I think maybe Chris Harris Jr. deserves a scouting role because he's the one that said from like August of last year that this guy's the real deal. And even Joey Bosa was saying that they had Tyrod Taylor as the starting quarterback, but Joey kept saying, this guy, man, he's throwing some dimes out here. So I think those guys were on top of it. And the biggest thing that really stood out to me is not just the skills. Like when he was on the field, he was like reading defenses, playing under pressure, converting on third downs, fourth down. So that's when a quarterback is a real deal. Then at the end of that rookie year, he was orchestrating game-winning drives. And that's kind of like the final step to me to say, okay, this guy's actually going to be legit for 10 years when he was doing that. But now to kind of, tie it into today's, what's going on, he's kind of going through a mini slump. And it's kind of funny to say because in Philly, he had a dominant game there. But now it's been 3 out of the last 4 games where the offense has really struggled. And keep in mind, he's facing guys like John Harbaugh and the Ravens, Bill Belichick and the Patriots, and Mike Zimmer and the Vikings. So I think the big thing for Justin Herbert is maybe these complex defenses that kind of make him guess out there and maybe, play a little faster has kind of hurt him at times. But I've seen these kind of struggles from Herbert. He kind of tends to shake it off and make adjustments and gets better. So I know people are freaking out on social media about Justin Herbert right now, but a lot of these, we forget that he's a second-year quarterback, and these quarterbacks kind of go up and down throughout the years, and eventually they find kind of that consistent when you groove and you expect them to be great every single Sunday. And I think Herbert is close to that point, but you got to keep kind of going through the growing pains as well.
We apologize because Brandon's having a little bit of technical difficulties out here. Yeah, that's what happens whenever you do it live. We're the Bill O'Reilly. But
you got 3 out of 4 though. At least box is working.
Yeah. You want me?
Sorry, my spot is having trouble. But right now, we have Austin Ekeler, who, unlike Justin Herbert, went undrafted, been in the league for a few years now. Averaging over 4 yards a carry, on pace for 1,000 yards, has a lot of passes caught this year, been a weapon for years. How do you think he stacks up against other backs in the league?
Yeah, no, Brandon, I think Austin Ekeler is very underrated. We just spoke to him actually a couple hours ago, and it kind of doesn't really feel like a typical Austin Ekeler year, maybe because Herbert's spreading the ball around, and it's not a run-heavy team, but he's still having a good season. In terms of you want to talk about fantasy football, yeah, I think he's up there with the guys like Christian McCaffrey and Alvin Kamara. But he's kind of missing some of the touches too as well in the passing game. I was talking to him earlier saying, is the reason why he's not getting more targets in the passing game because the guys behind them are not producing, like Justin Jackson, Larry Roundtree, and he kind of said that wasn't the issue, but he's having more of a bigger workload this year because guys are not stepping up. But I think it's been a typical Austin Ekeler year. He is one of the top running backs in the NFL. He's not the typical traditional kind of guy who's going to get you 1,000 rushing yards and maybe 10 rushing touchdowns, but he's a playmaker out there. He's a very well-versed running back, a contributor in the passing game, a good blocker as well. So he could give you a little bit of everything, but I think for Austin Ekeler to kind of be at his best, he needs somebody to step up to kind of be the big body running back, and they don't have that right now. So when the Chargers are playing the Steelers and they have a few third and short situations, that could be a problem because they haven't had guys moving the chains because the younger guys have not stepped up and found that role yet.
Oh, trust me, he's stepped up for my fantasy team. He's on there, my top pick.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned fantasy football, Mike. He's making people happy.
And do you think he'll have a big day on Sunday? Because the Steelers, they got gashed in the run game last week against the Lions. They got 229 yards rushing and 2 explosive touchdowns they got.
Yeah, no, I think so. I don't know. I don't know if he'll have a big day in terms of the ground game because for some reason this Chargers rushing attack has been kind of stagnant, and I think it's because the other guys are not really doing their part. But for some reason, Austin Eckler always finds a way to get you at least your 15 points in fantasy football, 50 receiving yards, 50 rushing yards. So he'll kind of have that type of impact at least. But I think they're going to try to attack him through the air with Justin Herbert, and I think maybe it could be a day where Ekeler has more targets on as a receiver. But to me, it kind of feels like because there's no Minkah Fitzpatrick out there, it could be a big passing day for the Chargers.
Yeah, and the one thing that'll help them out is that excellent receiving corps in Los Angeles. You have Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. Both are on pace to have 1,000 yards receiving each. How do you think Allen and Williams match up against the Steelers secondary with Minkah Fitzpatrick and without Minkah Fitzpatrick? Because even with it, Minkah has been kind of picked on by the analytics community for his performance this year. And I don't think it's warranted, but at least to that level.
Okay, that's good to know, I guess. And helping me do some of my research on the Steelers this week, and I guess it kind of also depends too if TJ Watt's out there. If Herbert's getting a clean pocket and he has all day to throw, it could be a long day for this Steelers secondary as well. But I think for the Chargers to kind of find their groove again, they started really hot as an offense. Week 1 through 5 because they had Keenan Allen and Mike Williams involved in the offense. Now it's kind of just been Keenan Allen, and Mike Williams kind of fell off the last 4 games, I want to say. We try asking Brandon Staley, what's the issue with Mike Williams? Is he having a knee problem? Are the opposing defenses taking him away? And we never really got a straight up answer, but it sounds like after we've all been hounding them about using Mike Williams more, it could be a big Mike Williams day where they kind of give him a few targets early on, because at the start of the year they were giving him a lot of targets at the line of scrimmage, 5-10 yard kind of plays. So you might see some of that, and then maybe develop the deeper shot later in the game. But it just feels like the Chargers need to kind of go back to the basics and get your big guys involved, like Ekeler, Keenan, and Michael. Who cares about the other guys? Kind of feed the big targets there and get your groove back, because they've really been. I'm very shocked at how poorly they played on offense the last month, because they started so well. So it could be one of those days where, like, hey, Mike and Keenan carry us to the win.
And up front, from left to right, the Chargers have Rashawn Slater, former Steeler Matt Filer, Corey Linsley, Michael Schofield III, and Storm Norton. How's the Chargers' offensive line been performing so far this year, and how's Filer doing?
Yeah, I guess the first couple games where they were struggling on offense, the Ravens game and the Patriots game, I guess everybody kind of blamed the offensive line on the right side, especially because Storm Norton and Michael Schofield are backups. They're filling in for Brian Bulaga and Ode Abushi, and Herbert got a lot of pressure on the right side. Like that's why I think he was rushing throws, overthinking, because he kind of already assumed the pocket's going to collapse every time he snapped the ball. And then in the Eagles game, the offensive line overall had a great game, and that's when you saw Herbert be at his best. But then it was weird because that Vikings game last week, I thought the protection wasn't too bad, and Herbert still had a bad game. So they kind of got to figure out some kind of balance there. Give him some good protection and let Herbert create on the fly. So we'll see how they kind of adjust there. But that left side has been rock steady all year. You mentioned Rashawn Slater, Matt Filer. So I'm not sure who's rushing on the opposite side of TJ Watt nowadays, because they don't have Melvin Ingram out there. But they're probably going to have a hard time breaking through that left side. So the best way to kind of attack this Charger offensive line is through the right. They also have center Corey Linsley, who's kind of been, steady, stable communicator, leader out there to help out some of the younger guys. But it's been up and down for this Chargers offensive line. They've had worse years, but they've had some moments where you see Herbert taking a few amount of hits out there, and it kind of throws off his rhythm and timing. But I think they've done enough to show that they could kind of survive the whole year with the injuries. Run more kind of bootleg action plays. Move around the pocket more based on design plays. So we'll see how they do, but it kind of depends on how TJ Watt, if he's out there, because he's one of the best pass rushers in the NFL.
And how's Filer been fitting there in Los Angeles?
That's right.
Because he's been Pennsylvania all the way. He's from PA. Yeah. He went to college at Bloomsburg, and then he was with the Steelers for a number of years.
You got me thinking now, Chris, because you probably should have requested Matt Filer to speak to the media this week because he used to play in Pittsburgh, and I don't think we're going to talk to him this week. So that is a bad part on us, beat reporters over here. But yeah, Matt Filer has nothing but great things to say about Pittsburgh when we talk to him in training camp and when he signed with the Chargers. I think he started out there as a right tackle, had to move to guard out of necessity, and he actually ended up playing really well there. And it became a job for him with the Chargers. So he's a versatile guy there, and he's really formed a great connection with Rashawn Slater. And they've had a lot of injuries on the offensive line, specifically on the right side, and the Chargers refuse to move Matt Filer to right tackle because they know how important he is for the rookie left tackle, Rashawn Slater. So, and sometimes I don't get why they don't run to the left side all day because Filer and Slater are just having a great time together. And like I mentioned, they won't move him around because they know how big he is to help out the rookie there.
All right, let's switch to the defensive side of the ball, Gill. All right, you mentioned earlier they are dead last in the NFL in the rushing defense, and we're averaging 155 yards per contest. How do you think they're going to stop Le'Veon Bell? What do you think about their defensive line? Do you think it's a scheme issue? Do you think they need to step up? Defensive line, linebackers. How do you think they're going to do it, or are they just trying to adjust to a new system?
Yeah, well,
you got a little bell on the brain there. I think you mean Najee Harris.
I'm thinking,
yeah, like how are they going to slow down on Najee Harris?
And Najee Harris is playing like Le'Veon Bell right now, so that's maybe why you get him confused there. And Le'Veon Bell's actually a free agent right now, so you never know. I doubt it's going to be a reunion there because it kind of ended ugly there in Pittsburgh. But they're going to have a long day, especially if, like I mentioned, those guys, if Joseph is not ready to play, if Jerry Tillery and Christian Covington are not out of the COVID list by then, it could be a long day for this front seven for the Chargers. Also, we don't know if they get Drew Tranquil back as well. So, Joey Bosa helps you as a pass rusher if he's playing, but you're gonna have a long day if your inside guys are not there. And if I'm the Steelers, I'm just gonna pound the rock the whole day, especially if Mason Rudolph is out there playing. And then who knows if Claypool's gonna play, so he could be limited for targets there as well. So I think expect a heavy dose of Najee Harris, attacking this weak Chargers front seven. And it's strange because sometimes these teams, they know the issue there and they attack them like crazy. And Chargers find a way to win the game, even though they're allowing 200 yards per game on the ground. So it's kind of this thing where, like, Brandon Staley doesn't want you to attack the deep part of the field. They want you to kind of have a slow approach to get drives going. And sometimes that leads to, maybe a stop there for a field goal or at least to a turnover. So I think Staley prefers kind of a slower pace to create mistakes more on offense for the Steelers. But we'll see. Maybe it's not rocket science. Maybe I'm overthinking it. I think they're probably going to be like, okay, who cares? Are you giving us the running lanes? Might as well take them.
Yeah, and now let's move on to, at least the bell cow of the Chargers pass rush. And we're going to put this under the assumption that Joey Bosa played this game. He has 5.5 sacks this year and 3 forced fumbles. So what do you expect to see out of Bosa? Because at least little by little, the Steelers' offensive line has improved in terms of pass protection. It's not the great leap that at least most here in Pittsburgh expected, but still, it's pretty good.
Yeah, no. When I was doing some research early on, it seemed like it was a little shaky for the Steelers' offensive line. Former Charger Trey Turner, he's still out there, right? Is he the right guard or left guard?
He's a right guard guy. Left.
Okay.
Sorry.
Right guard. You're correct.
Right guard. Okay, so he's still in the same spot there. So that's another kind of a wrinkle there. The Chargers kind of essentially traded linemen there, Trey Turner and Matt Filer. But yeah, it was kind of a shaky, offensive line. It could be a nice day for Joey Bosa, but a lot of teams have been double teaming Joey Bosa, chipping him also because the guys on the other side, Kyler Fackrell and Chandler Nwosu, haven't really done much all year. Nwosu had a decent game against the Vikings, so maybe that could be where he kind of wakes up and helps out Joey Bosa because these double teams or triple teams are starting to add up to Joey Bosa. And that's why maybe the numbers are not as high this year, but he's still being a disruptor out there, creating pressure. And who knows how he's going to be after missing maybe a whole week of practice. I know Joey Bosa really likes his practice time. It's very important to him to kind of find the rhythm. He's all about having a routine. So that kind of might disrupt him a little bit. But if the Steelers' offensive line has kind of been shaky all year, it could be a long day for them against Joey Bosa. So I think expect a lot of max protections and chipping on the side of Joey Bosa for that.
And in the secondary, the Chargers have veteran cornerback Chris Harris Jr. and Michael Davis as the starters. And then in the safety tandem is Derwin James and strong safety, and they're really at the free safety position. And also, how have they been doing overall? The Chargers secondary, and how do you think they match up against the Steelers passing attack, which hasn't been very explosive this year?
Yeah, no, they started out really strong. They rarely allowed explosive plays through the air. They were facing Dak Prescott and Patrick Mahomes in the first part of the season, and Derek Carr also, and they weren't really getting a lot of big plays on the field because the way the Chargers play is more, they invite you more to attack the short part of the field. They want you to run more. They won't let you get the 20-yard plays down the field. So they were excellent in that part. But the last 2 weeks, though, they've had injuries. They've been without Michael Davis. They've been without Nazir Adderley. They missed Asante Samuel Jr. in one of the games. And these opposing offenses start, noticing that and taking advantage. Like Devontae Smith, the rookie from the Eagles, a couple of weeks ago, had a big day against them. The star receiver for the Vikings, Justin Jefferson, had a monster day last week. So they're starting to attack this defense through the air. So it's kind of been a different approach for attacking the Chargers. And maybe if they get guys back this week, like Michael Davis and Nazir Adderley, and they have Asante Samuel Jr. back already, they'll be fine there, especially because this Steelers passing attack hasn't done well through the deep part of the game. And I don't know if Claypool's going to play, but I guess maybe I have a question for you guys because is it Big Ben losing that arm strength? They want to attack down the field, or what's going on there? Because you have a weapon like Claypool and other guys there, and Deontay Johnson, they're not using them properly. Is that because of Big Ben's arm strength?
It plays a role.
No,
it plays a role.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Brandon.
Well, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's Big Ben. Some of it is Big Ben's arm strength, and some of it is the receivers are not playing to the potential. I honestly said, I talked to this on Monday during the weekend. I think Deontay Johnson has the potential to be a top 5 receiver in the league, but his head's not in it on a consistent basis. And I think Claypool could be an upper tier number 1. Maybe lower to number 1, high end number 2 receiver, but he's still young, second year player, 22. But his game, his head has the same mental issues at times as Johnson.
Yeah, I would agree with Brandon. Claypool, he had a great rookie season, but he has kind of regressed this season. He only has 1 touchdown reception, and Johnson, same thing. He's a great receiver, he's a great route runner, but one thing is to watch the Steelers. For some reason, they don't target the middle of the field. Like after the game, everyone looks up the next gen stats where they have like the little dots, the targets where they go, and they just for some reason they always like ignore the middle of the field. So that's one thing. Roethlisberger, I don't know if it's like an offensive thing or I think it is a schematic thing, but for some reason they just don't attack the middle of the field.
So it's also the crazy thing about that as well. Just sorry to cut you off there, but the crazy thing about it is that last week against the Lions, they actually did a few times attempt to attack the middle of the field. There was one pass from Mason Rudolph that he didn't really even like rear back into the throw. It was all arm, and if it's accurate, Johnson has another long gain for possibly at least he gets into the opposite side of the field at the very least, if not a touchdown. There's been situations, and even with the fumbles in overtime and stuff like that, a lot of it's just mental with them right now. There's just something wrong between the ears with all of them, and they're all young. I mean, people forget that especially with Juju Smith-Schuster, Deontay Johnson has less service time in the league, but Juju is younger than him. And so you just have to look around and go, I guess eventually they're going to get it, and maybe Ben kind of plays a role with it, but I just don't know exactly how to point it out right now.
Wow, well, I'm glad I asked. So I wasn't sure they were taking enough shots, and the whole, not attacking the middle part of the field is very interesting to me. So I'll keep that in mind when I'm out there on Sunday.
But now we're towards the end of our interview. So who do you think will have a big game for the Chargers, and what's your biggest concern for them in this game?
Biggest concern. It's so weird because I would have said T.J. Watt if he's out there, and it sounds like he has a chance, or is that like a no? He has no chance kind of thing.
I don't think that it's likely because it was like a knee knock situation, and then it was a hip, so he may miss this game. But they still have to deal with Cam Hayward, who's one of the best interior defensive linemen in the league.
Yeah, he's very underrated, one of the top guys. But maybe this might not be a football one, but I'm just curious to see how the fan base will do for the Steelers there at SoFi Stadium, a brand new stadium. It seats 80,000. Last time we saw the Steelers in Southern California, they took over the soccer stadium. So if you're seeing about 60,000 Steelers fans in LA, that must be devastating for the mental side there. So if you're an offense like with Justin Herbert trying to get back on track and you're going silent count at home, I'm sure that will not help you. So, it's weird because this Chargers team, I can't really figure it out because maybe I shouldn't care who's on the field because last week they had no Anthony Barr, no Harrison Smith, no Daniel Hunter, and the Chargers still laid an egg. So they're very hard to figure out. When they're supposed to win, they don't win. When they're not supposed to win, they win the game. So they beat the Chiefs early on. They beat the Raiders, but then this last month, they got destroyed by the Ravens. It's hard to figure out this Chargers team. So I'm just curious to see how it goes. Maybe I'm just concerned because they're not consistent. They don't really show you that they're ready to kind of take that next step yet. And also, they don't do too well against teams who are well coached. And Brandon Staley was praising Mike Tomlin today, like saying, he's one of the reasons why he got into coaching. So if it is a chess match, maybe Mike Tomlin has the edge there as well. So, I would say the Chargers have the edge in terms of talent. But when it comes to proving that you're going to be a winner and a contender in the NFL, they haven't done that so far this year. So it's kind of hard to take them seriously, even though there's a lot of guys missing for the Steelers.
And Gilbert, do you have a prediction for the game? I know it's Wednesday right now. It's a few days out, but what do you think about this game? Do you have a winner as right now?
Yeah, I might give you a long response here because it's more of a kind of a feel kind of prediction because I've picked the Chargers every single week to win the game since KC in week 3, and I've been proven wrong half the time. So most of the time, I don't know what I'm doing out here, and I just want to break away from picking the Chargers. And they're playing a talented Steelers team with Mike Tomlin leading the charge. I know the Chargers are at home, and it's gonna be a whole bunch of Steelers fans there as well. So we'll see if it's really a home game, but. Until they show me that they're capable of being a consistent team, I can't do it against a Steelers team that's been in the playoffs. Maybe they weren't in the playoffs last year, or actually they were, also the Browns. But a team that's kind of been, well experienced, they've shown you that they're able to kind of rise to the occasion. I'm gonna go with that side, and I say the Steelers win this one. And I think it'll be low scoring. I'll say, 24-17 Steelers.
Okay, speaking of being in Los Angeles, number one, what's SoFi like? And number two, how has the Chargers been received in LA? And do you think they should move? Do you think they should have ever left San Diego?
Yeah, that second part might get me in trouble here if some of the Chargers personnel watching this video, because they don't like talking about San Diego over here. But I'll say this, it's a lot of work to do in Los Angeles. Like they're not going to be one of the top teams in the LA market for a while. It takes a lot of work. You got to be a winning team. They're still pretty new here in Los Angeles. They moved 5 years ago now. It's kind of crazy to think it's been 5 years, but and even with the Rams, like the Rams have need to get all the star power to gain attention in Los Angeles. They got OBJ and Von Miller, but it's still a Lakers town. It's still a Dodgers town. Like if it's not those two teams, LA does not care about you unless you're winning. If you're winning and you're exciting, they will care. And it kind of got to that point early on for the Chargers because Justin Herbert was just lighting it up in the NFL. He was a fun quarterback to watch in the first month of the season. and it's kind of fell apart now the last couple weeks there. So people are not maybe as interested in Justin Herbert because the LA people are very they kind of gravitate to whatever's trendy and popular at the moment. So if Herbert and Brandon Staley are winning year in and year out, then I think this Chargers team has a strong chance of building a fan base in Los Angeles. But I've seen growth here, with Herbert excitement and Brandon Staley excitement, a new stadium excitement. People always brag about the powder blue jersey. So I'm seeing more and more jerseys out there in Los Angeles, but they still have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, and speaking of SoFi, are you currently in that stadium right now? Because I see the bolt up right behind your shoulder.
No, I'm at the Chargers headquarters in Orange County. I'm out here still working late. I usually kind of leave around 7 o'clock. So this is where I set up here for Wednesday, Thursday, Fridays during practices.
Well, how is that beautiful new stadium out there in Inglewood? There was so much going in between that move because originally there was like another place in Hollywood Park, if I recall correctly, that was going to be a stadium, and also there was at one point it was going to be the Las Vegas Chargers, but but instead. So just how is that stadium?
I feel like I've grown accustomed to the brand new stadium. Like I'm already used to the big video board. So I kind of get reminded of how lucky I am to cover games there, because when opposing media come into town, I always hear them, chattering like, wow, this is the best NFL stadium I've been at. And some of these guys have covered the NFL for like 30 years. Like these old timers are saying this is the best stadium they've ever been at or seen in person. It kind of reminds me, okay, this place is pretty legit. It's a nice place. I like it. I just gotten used to it. But every time I walk onto the field, you kind of look up at the video board, you kind of remind yourself, okay, this is why they spent $5 billion on the stadium, because you want kind of this attention and kind of when you walk in, your eyes just go to the Oculus board. So, but when people are saying from out of town that they love it, I think there was a guy who was covering the Vikings who came a day early just to get a tour at SoFi Stadium. That kind of tells you that people really want to see this place.
Yeah, it's not Qualcomm Stadium.
Yeah, no, it's not that place they played over there. So I think that's why they moved. They wanted a new stadium, and they got it.
And Gilbert, how does the fan base feel about new head coach Brandon Staley?
Oh, they love him. I know they've kind of had their little struggles here in the past month, but just his aggressive approach on fourth down, I think he gained a lot of attention and fans that way. You go into KC in week 3, you win, you beat the Raiders, and week 4, you go into Washington, you win that game, you start 4-1, and you get a lot of believers right away. And not just, in terms of the fourth down, this guy really gets it in terms of analytics. People love the numbers nowadays. And when you get frustrated with the old school coaches, they're not aggressive. They don't care about the situational football part. And Brandon Staley likes all that. He's prepared for every type of situation. But now for him, it's kind of going through the like I mentioned, the growing pains, because you're going to go against guys who've done this for years, like a Harbaugh and a Bill Belichick, and that's where you kind of see some of the growing pains for Brandon Staley. But I know he's probably watching these losses and just taking something that he could learn, because he's very detailed head coach, and he's the thing we like as reporter. He's also very honest. He's not afraid to show scheme in his press conferences. You can ask him about something regarding his zone coverage, he will break it down to the T for you. So that's pretty refreshing for a head coach. But it kind of makes for longer press conferences where you're kind of getting football one-on-one every single day. But I like it. I'm not going to complain about it.
One more thing before we go. I seen this on your Twitter account. You also say that you're a boxing reporter, and on my account, I cover the local boxing scene as much as I can.
Okay.
Recently, I haven't been able to get to because I'm fulfilling one of my dreams of my career. But I'm curious, how is that? And have you heard the name Lubomir Pinchuk? He did take a fight out in Los Angeles about a year ago during at least a little bit of the height of the pandemic.
Is that somebody you guys are friends with, or?
No, Pinchuk is kind of a guy that I covered a bunch because they're kind of like the leaders of the Pittsburgh fight scene out here.
Okay.
It's growing. We had a few guys. G5 Cheryl was on the contender, but out in that area. But I'm curious about that. Just
No,
to see.
I'm not too familiar with that area, but or I guess that promotion, boxing promotion. But I kind of like some of these underdog stories that you get in boxing, and that's why I kind of gravitate towards covering it. And I just love combat sports. I like MMA as well. I'm also into wrestling. Uh, not like I used to, but I still follow it for the big pay-per-views. But I covered boxing in Las Vegas for the Las Vegas Review Journal. That's where I covered the Raiders too. Uh, so I was a boxing beat reporter there, and there's nothing better than being ringside for a big fight in Las Vegas. You see all the celebrities around you. Uh, you hear the anthem, and then you start watching the guys kind of go at it, and it's like, okay, this is pretty cool. And I've covered Super Bowls. I covered a lot of big football games, but nothing kind of matches the feeling of being ringside. So when I moved to LA from Vegas, I told myself I still want to do this. It's hard during the football season, so I kind of don't do much. But when it's between January through July, anytime there's a fight, and locally in Southern California, there's a whole bunch of fights. If you ever come out to LA and you're a boxing fan, I recommend going to one of the venues here in Los Angeles because they're pretty passionate. You might see a couple fights every now and then in the stands. Stay away from that. But boxing in LA, they just go together, and I'm sure it does the same thing in Pittsburgh out there. So it's just something I like to do when I have free time from the NFL reporting.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I have one guy.
What's the biggest fight you ever covered?
Out in Malibu. Sorry about this, Brandon. I have one guy out in Malibu that actually did a Pittsburgh history pictorial book. Very nice.
Wow. Okay,
but, Brandon,
check that out. No, Brandon, I think I heard your question. I guess for me when I was there, for biggest fight, I don't think it's my favorite fight, but the biggest one I got to cover was Floyd Mayweather against Conor McGregor, that crazy circus cross fight there. But my favorite one was the two Canelo Alvarez against Triple G fights. I was ringside for those two fights. That was fun. But when it was when Mayweather and McGregor were involved, all the stars come out. So that was a massive weekend too.
Did you get to talk to Mayweather or McGregor, or were you just at their press conference there when they met each other and stuff?
Yeah, I've had interviews with Mayweather. I haven't gotten a chance to speak to McGregor, like ask him a question, but I've been around him as well for like press conferences. It's kind of hard to get a question in for McGregor. Same thing with Mayweather, but because he lives in Las Vegas. And I was a local reporter. He talked to me a couple of times. One time I pissed him off because I was asking him about his taxes. He had like a tax problem in Las Vegas, and I had to ask for a story. Mayweather's a cool dude. And as you know, Tyler, talking to boxers, they keep it real. They always have a crazy story. You got to have somewhat of a good story. You're going to, go into a ring. There's a reason why you're doing it, and it's usually a good story.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. Guys, any more?
Oh, yeah, I just want to kind of touch back on Herbert because I tweeted out about that him being everyone thinking he wasn't going to be that good coming out of Oregon, and I got some responses where people were saying it was like East Coast bias or something because they didn't see him out in Oregon, and another person said that, which I didn't really know. They said he's like really quiet or something like that. Is that how Herbert is? And do you think that's why he was maybe knocked when he was like not as like the that stereotypical leader quarterback that's very vocal?
Yeah, because nobody could really figure out why he dropped in the draft. I'm gonna say it might be that he was too quiet, and people kind of want this, alpha male, talkative quarterback in your locker room, and people got scared from that. And credit to the Chargers, they did the research. They got to know this guy from different levels. He's very quiet, and to answer your question, he's not that talkative with us reporters, and it kind of drives us crazy because we want good quotes and we kind of want more character. But when you're playing lights out every Sunday, it doesn't matter what you say. And he really, developed, I guess a strong fan base with the Chargers. People love him, adore him. If I say anything bad about him on Twitter, they're gonna come after me. I could say Herbert had a bad throw there, and it's pretty obvious. If he could bounce the ball off the field, people still attack me. So that's how well he was playing. And he is very shy, but he has a way of kind of leading by example and kind of just, I think, by just loyalty and obviously the way he plays. And when he's out there also putting his body on the line, some of these times he's running with the ball and he won't go down. He kind of just lowers his shoulder, and I think that kind of gains respect too from his teammates. But I think where he really kind of gained the respect without having to talk is when he went into the KC game a year ago against the Chiefs after Tyrod Taylor kind of took that rib injury there, and he had 5 minutes notice to play into the game. And you go out there and you play like that against defending champions at the time and take them to overtime. I think you gain a lot of credibility and respect off the bat. So who cares what you say when you're throwing for 300 yards every single week? But it's kind of the downside for us reporters because you don't get these interviews where you kind of get to know him a little better. But I've talked to his family. I've talked to people who play with him or been around him, and everybody says nothing but great things about Justin Herbert. So maybe that's why he fell. And I have somebody who's near me who always says, "Thank you, Miami," because the Dolphins passed on Herbert and went for Tua. So that became the Chargers' game.
And then just the last thing, Melvin Ingram was here with the Steelers in Pittsburgh for a short while, and then the Steelers ended up trading him because he was unhappy with his playing time, and he's now back in the AFC West there with the Chiefs. So how do Chargers fans feel about that? Or because he was with the Chargers for a long time there, Melvin Ingram.
Yeah, Melvin Ingram had I think a workout with the Chiefs before he went to the Steelers, and people on social media were like, "Oh, we do not want to see that. That makes me sick to my stomach." And it came to fruition a few months later. It's kind of weird that it didn't work out with the Steelers there. Kind of a bit of a mystery. I think Mike Tomlin said he doesn't want to hold people hostage, so he let them go. And it kind of worked out for the Chiefs game because Melvin Ingram kind of gave him a lift in that Raiders game. So it could be an issue when the Chargers play the Chiefs on Thursday Night Football, and maybe the division's on the line for that Thursday night game. I want to say in middle of December. So I thought I was going to write a story about Melvin Ingram coming to face the Chargers this week because he was with the Steelers, and I'm out to wait a little longer. So we'll see how it kind of works out there. But Melvin Ingram was a great player for the Chargers, but he kind of had a down year, and they felt it was better to move on. But they really need him now this year because they don't have that number 2 pass rusher behind Joey Bosa.
Alex Highsmith had a lot to do with that, so trust me, that's one thing you could probably take a little bit of a look in with both this week and also with Ingram coming in for the Chiefs. But guys, I think that's all we got for this.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, and that was Gilbert Manzano. He covers the Chargers for the Orange County Register and the LA Daily News. Gilbert, thanks so much for coming on the show, and maybe one day I'll see you out at the fights.
Yeah, hopefully I see you ringside, Tyler. Thank you for having me on. Chris also, and Brandon. Brandon, I'm glad you got the Wi-Fi back on. Good to talk to you as well. It was a good time, guys. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, sir.
All right, so guys, want to continue off of this, or do you want me to end it? Okay, he left. So I wasn't sure what to do with that, but guys, again, Gilbert, we thank you so much. Be sure to follow him on Twitter at gmanzano24, and we thank him for coming on the show. So Gilbert said 24-17 for his prediction in favor of the Steelers. And guys, before I give you my prediction, I want to hear you guys' first.
Let me go before my Wi-Fi goes off again. I will say the Chargers are going to charger. So I have no confidence. I don't have that much confidence in the Chargers. The Chargers are a better team. I'm with Gill. I see a classic Chargers missed field goal. That can happen. I say 27-24. I say Deontay Johnson is going to be the star of the game this week. I know I said that. Some days he lives up to his potential. I think he's going to have 7 for 125, couple touchdowns, and Boz will do the Boz thing at the end.
Well, Brandon, just in case this does cut out your Wi-Fi, just know that you don't have to join again. We're basically wrapping up, but be sure to check us out. We will be on Colorcast doing the broadcast of this game, pending how fast I get back home from the other side of the state for the second week in a row. I'm glad I could get on this podcast with you guys before I could do that. So yeah, be sure to check that out. That's kind of like the thing that I've been doing recently. But also for me, I don't have the confidence you have in terms of Chargers going to charger. I feel that right now, at least with everything as it stands for what we know as the Steelers, I'm going to say this. it's going to be 20-17 Chargers.
Yeah, we don't know right now if Ben's. I'm assuming that Ben will play, but still, the Steelers just have so many injuries right now, and I think they're due for a loss because they arguably could have lose. I mean, they almost did lose to the Bears. I mean, there's a lot of a couple questionable calls in that game that went against Chicago, and then they tied with the Lions. They should have won that game even with Mason Rudolph. So I think they're due for a loss. It'll be close because all the Steeler games are, they always go down to the wire. So I'll say Chargers win this one 26-20.
All right, guys. So Brandon already said his big player would be Deontay Johnson. I'm going to say this. If the Steelers win, it's because Cam Hayward had a heroic performance. He already does great, but there's going to be possibly a little bit more with the buzzards going around the potential of TJ Watt not playing this game. So I'm going to say that if the Steelers do win in this situation, it's because Cam Hayward had 2 sacks.
That's a good one. Hayward, he's been having an incredible season, probably the best that I've ever seen him playing at such a high level right now. The Pro Bowl voting started this week, so definitely there's not too many really. Like Boswell comes to mind, definitely TJ Watt, maybe even Najee Harris, but other than that, there's not really a lot. Hayward and TJ Watt would definitely be all pro, I think. My big player would probably be Najee Harris because the Chargers' run defense ranks last in the league. So I believe Harris will have a 100-yard rushing performance.
All right, guys. So, Brandon, do you have anything else you want to add before you have to go because Wi-Fi may be troublesome for you?
I'm gonna say next time we go live, I'm using the computer. I am going to use the computer the next time. Trust me. I tried it out. It kind of failed. It didn't fail miserably because I got questions off, but I got my questions in. I got the predictions in. Good job, boys.
Yes, this was our first time doing this live on StreamYard. So if you were one of the few but proud to join us, thank you very much. We are always improving with this. We will try to get this out to you sooner and not the night before, but we were thinking about doing this for a while, and then things just got thrown off kilter. But, of course, now that we have done this, now that we've established at least a running order of how we're going to do things, we think that this is going to be the best way for you to get podcast content out of us. So please make sure that you're a part of this. Please make sure that you still follow us on all of our podcast sites. Of course, this Twitter at @RBlitzPod. Myself, if you want to follow it, at @PREZ_Ty Polk, at BWalkerTheDon. And Chris Ward, you can follow him at Blitz Videos. That's our main account for the Renegade Blitz. And again, thank you so much for tuning in for this first live edition of the podcast on Twitter and YouTube. Please make sure that you join us in time. We will have a set scheduled time for when we do the interviews, and they will be on this Twitter and also our YouTube, and you will also catch us for the recaps. We will cut it up and put it on the podcast site. So again, please support us any way you can. Ask us questions. We'll answer them. We promise. And again, thank you so much for tuning in to the Renegade Blitz. I'm Ty Polk. That's Chris Ward and Brandon Walker, and we are out.